Good evening, everyone. It's Peter Downs here. Welcome. Good evening to you for the welcome to the second webinar in the National Officiating Scheme Mentor program for 2015. Thanks very much for giving up a bit of time this evening for this webinar. As per usual, we have a nice little group already online, which is great. Thank you very much. I can see the familiar faces there. We want to encourage you to, of course, ask questions and make comments all the way through the webinar as we go. And I think you know how to do that through the chat or question box that's on your control panel there. So I'll be prompting you throughout the evening to ask those questions, and I also will have stop it from time to time during the webinar to pose those questions to Daryl and as we go along. So don't hesitate to send your questions in. That'd be great. So without further ado, I'll unmute our host for this evening and leave him to it. Daryl, can you hear me?
Yes, Peter. How are you this evening?
I'm good. Thanks, Daryl. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Excellent. We have a nice little group here, Daryl, already online and tuned in. So I think we're ready to go. I'll just sit here in the background, and whenever you want to look at questions and things like that, just give us a yell.
All right. Thanks very much, Peter. Welcome, everybody. Apologies for the change of night, but I was caught between a rock and a hard place, whether we go ahead last night with a major sporting event on where people were emailing me saying that they weren't available and apologies, or move it to tonight where we had a similar situation. We have you people online, but again, I probably have less people getting in touch with me saying, look, I'm really sorry, but we'll have to look at the replay. And that's the beauty of the webinar series. As I said in text messages back to those mentors, the beauty of this is its flexibility. You can either go live and listen to it, or if you're not available, because we do understand that you mentors are very, very busy people, you can actually view the replay. But also, if you are in the webinar live, you can actually go back and watch the replay too if I've put you to sleep, or you didn't get something, or you've fallen to sleep, or I've fallen to sleep. So yeah, please use the replay if required. Okay, quick revision from the last time that we spoke. We talked about what is a mentor. We talked about what a successful mentoring relationship should look like. Peter also spoke about two case studies. He talked about staff member A, who was a female, and staff member B, who was a male. And he talked about the challenges of assisting with the growth of both those staff members within his program. We then talked about characteristics of a good mentor, and if you do remember, again, that's probably when we had some technical problems. I did go through a checklist with you where you were there going, well, yes, I'm doing this, yes, I'm doing this, no, I could do this one better. So please think about the context of this week in regards to what we've already done in the previous week. What I would encourage anyone to do is, if you have any technical problems tonight, to quickly send a message via the text box to Peter. We think we sorted out what the problem was, and it came down to some internet speed. Is that right, Peter? We think it came down to that, the speed, the accessing speed that you had.
Oh, that and the weather at the time as well.
Hello,
I think. Yeah, that on the weather at the time.
The weather. Well. Yeah. Yeah, so given that we're the nation's capital, weather can influence technical internet issues here in Canberra. So let's get underway with the first slide. Thanks, Peter. Okay, what I want to talk about, what I want to talk about with you guys is, again, the characteristics of a good mentee. Okay, now, what I want you to do here is, when you see these slides, again, what I want you to do is tick a box, okay? So does your mentee drive the process and take responsibility for solving problems, personal growth and development? Is that a yes or a no? Again, we're going to put this into a poll at the end, so we need to have a rough score. So now this is your observations of your mentees' behavioural aspects rather than sort of talking about the technical aspects of how they're improving or how they're improving managing different aspects of their own development. So let's have a look at it. So first of all, does your mentee drive the process and take responsibility for problem solving, personal growth and development? Is that a yes, no, or dash? Okay. Is he or she motivated and willing to develop a good relationship? Do they listen and accept guidance and feedback? Okay. And I would add to that, do they act on it? Sometimes you have your mentee there or your scholarship official, and they'll listen and they'll accept guidance and feedback, but whether they take action on that is quite important. All right. Next slide, thanks, Pete. Do they look to be challenged? Okay. Do they look to be challenged? So are you in a position where you are challenging them? Are they flexible and open to new ideas? Do they show initiative and enthusiasm but has reasonable expectations? Or are they still at a point where I want it and I want it now? Do they recognise and acknowledge and appreciate you? How many times have they said thank you to you? How many times have they said thanks for your time? How many times have they turned up and it hasn't been a really good day for them? And you've sort of had to sort of step on eggshells. Next one, thanks, Pete. I do want to add two more questions. I just want to add two more questions to this before we get to the poll. Do they set realistic and appropriate goals? Yes or no? And do you believe that they are reliable, trustworthy, and maintain confidentiality? Okay, give me a score there, please. We'll put a poll question up. There's 9 characteristics, so there were 7 on the screen. I've added another 2, according to my calculations. So we'll go to the poll. So 0 to 4, only seeing glimpses of these characteristics. Scores 5 to 7 are good, 8 to 9 are excellent. So Peter, if we could throw the next poll up, that'd be great.
Yeah, we've got about to see it. Oh, it's 100% voted. I'll close that off now.
Okay, what do we come up with, mate? Okay, so we've got 88% sitting in the excellent and 5 to 7 in the good area. So the 13%, which is great. The majority of people are scoring quite high. The 5 to 7, what I like, that is 13% there that have basically looked at the good. What I'd like you to do in the next couple of weeks is analyse why you're sitting at 5 to 7 or you're in the good area and what needs to happen to start moving your scholarship official up into sort of the higher bracket. So the challenge that I'm sort of throwing out to you is what needs to happen. So if we were to do this at the end of the year, it'd put you into the excellent. And I'm quite happy for the people that have scored the 5 to 7 to quickly put some notes down to Peter saying, oh, why is it 5 to 7? Why is it good? What's the difference between being in the 88% or opposed to being in the 13%? And again, that's not an issue. Why we do this is to basically make sure that no one is the 0 to 4. That's the most important thing. So feel free to type some responses back into Peter based on that, and we can talk about it a little bit later on within the webinar. Okay. Right, next one. Thanks, Pete. All right. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is some of the flags in the declining mentoring relationship. So these are some of the red flags that we don't want to see occurring. Okay, we talked about it earlier in the year, but again, what we find, even though we talk about it earlier in the year, once you've started that mentoring relationship for the first 6 months, it's good to go back over this because it begins to gel a little bit more with you. So we look at that. We've got the poor communication, we've got the personality differences, we've got lack of commitment, we've got conflicts of interest, we've got perceived or real competition, we've got lack of interest. So all those 6 areas start sort of putting alarm bells up if the consistent behaviour, if it becomes consistent behaviour. Peter, next slide, thanks, mate. Yep, great. So first of all, poor communication, including lack of open communication, fail to communicate tactfully, and inability to listen. Okay, and I would add to that, as we did before, inability to act upon discussions that you have with your scholarship official. Okay, there will be times where you will have, a time where you may get off the phone or away from an email or away from a face-to-face and go, oh, that was the communication between us was actually pretty bad at that time. As long as that's an atypical situation, that's fine, as long as it's atypical. The second point I want to talk about is lack of commitment. Lack of time committed to the relationship or waning interest over time. Now, that could be you as well, or it could be the scholarship official. Okay? As we mentioned, you can't be half a mentor in this program. There has to be a full commitment, and you can't be half a scholarship official. That's the other thing. The feedback from the last camp, which was a couple of weeks ago, late May, it's late May now, a couple of weeks ago, basically Ash and Ben basically said, look, this is probably the best group of scholarship officials that's ever come through the program as a collective group. And there wasn't any red flags about the scholarship officials or the mentor relationship, which was great for Toppy, Nunny and myself to hear. So you will also find that over time, the scholarship official will probably, at times, you may feel that they're not giving enough time, and that's where the nudge may have to occur. Okay? Nudge may occur, and we'll talk about reinforcing the nudges a little bit later. Personality differences, different personality characteristics between the mentor and the mentee. At this stage, I have not had any feedback that that's an issue. We talked about that being an issue last year. That was an issue with at least one of the mentors and the scholarship officials or mentees. But this year, I haven't had any feedback, nor Peter, Top, or Chris Nunn has had any feedback that there's any personality differences. And again, if they start evolving, it's better to have early intervention strategy by talking to the scholarship mentor support team, the 3 of us, or talking to Ash, or talking to your NSO. Okay, next slide, thanks Pete. Okay, perceived or real competition. So this is basically looking at the present mentors that are still at the top of their game. So it's the overlapping interests may lead to competition because of perceived potential for competition. Fail to recognise that a mentee's success reflects well on their mentor. Okay, so what happens at this time is that some mentees turn around to their mentor who's still competing going, look, there's a perception of competition, and in fact there is competition because I eventually want that mentor's job, especially if they're full-time. I want to be in that position. Now, what the mentor has to go through at that stage is, hey, I want him to have my position when I retire. I'm going to go on my terms, and hey, if I've invested in this individual and they've come through and they're going to be part of the succession planning of the organisation, I was part of that, then you hang your hat on that. Okay? Conflicts of interest, competing agendas between the mentor and the mentee. Again, that comes down to philosophies, and at this stage, not many conflicts of interest occur, really. Okay? Lack of experience. Mentor may not have relevant knowledge, skills, or experience. I don't think that's the case with the mentors that we've got at this particular moment. Again, this information came out of a study in the US. As I mentioned at the beginning of the year, I was looking for some new data and research to hang what we're doing in our mentor program on a research base. And again, this came out of a couple of medical schools in the United States. So at this stage, that lack of experience, I don't perceive as being an issue. All of you are either there doing it as active officials or been there and done that and want to invest back into the group. Okay, thanks, Pete. Okay. Of the 6 behaviours summarised in the declining mentor relationship, my official has displayed any time during the past 6 months one of those behaviours, 1 or 2 of those behaviours, 3 or 4 of those behaviours, or 5 or 6 of those behaviours. So, you know, what is there anything that you're perceiving occurring? So if we go to the poll, mate, and this is where we probably had the problem last time, moving from the poll back to the slides. So if your scholarship official is displaying 0 behaviours, that's great. 1 to 2 of the behaviours, 3 or 4 of the behaviours, or 5 or 6 of the behaviours. So give me an idea of what your perception of your scholarship official is like within those six spheres. Great. 100% hit rate. So that's really good. And I mean, this is the foundations, or the continual building upon the foundations of what a successful mentoring relationship is. So none of your guys or girls, guys is the sort of the generic, are displaying any of those behaviours. So at the moment, it's then reinforcing what Ash and Ben told me about the scholarship officials when they were in camp and their relationship with you guys. All right. Next slide. Thanks, Peter. In light of your responses, I'm going to change this question, because this question was geared based on some feedback last year. Okay? And the question that is appearing in front of you now is, for those mentors who have experienced some of these traits, what strategies did you use to rectify the problem? Now, you've told me that there are no problems, okay, or those 6 traits aren't appearing, okay? So what I'd like you to do in the message box is tell me why, or tell me how your mentoring relationship is going so well. So what are you putting in place? So what's making the relationship go well? What's making it blossom? What's making it grow? So if you could throw in some comments back to Peter now, which will come up on my screen. So tell me why your relationship is going well. And I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes, probably 1 minute. 1 minute's a long time with silence. So 1 minute to throw in, okay, those traits aren't existing. You've told me that. Now tell me why the relationship's so good.
I think
See why I've put those comments in, Peter, for all those people surfing the clothing sites and buying sites while I'm talking.
Yeah. I'll read you some out, Daryl. My mentee is very committed to the program and is keen to make the most of the opportunities.
Okay, so that's great in the sense that we use the term use it or lose it, and that always helps if you've got a really committed mentee scholarship official that really wants to, you know, suck all the information out of you that they can. All right, next one, mate.
Mentee is committed to doing everything possible.
Yep. Okay, so that's the same as the first one.
Respect success in both directions.
So they respect success. Success is always a good motivator.
Yeah.
It always helps. So if you're there assisting in the growth of an individual and they are striving forward, onward and upward, it always helps, because they believe that it's attributed to the combination of the people assisting them.
My scholarship holder has a clear short-term goal that they are working towards, so they are focused on that and using myself and other resources to assist with attaining their goal.
Okay, so goal orientated or outcome orientated. To that person that made that comment, how are you juggling the interaction that your mentee is using with other people? If you could just throw in a comment, are they going off doing it themselves, or are they using you as a linkage or a catalyst for that? Okay, while that's coming in, mate, we'll go to any other comments.
Yep. Consistent set time we speak each week. A very, very honest conversations, not just fluffy conversations. Good friends, which enables us to get past the nice chit chat.
Okay, so so it's the consistency, and it's a regime where we meet at these particular times. And basically, I'll do a summary. You're cutting through all the fluffy stuff, and you're getting right to the core. Also, with that person, can I ask a comment? Have you had to deal with a difficult conversation with this individual, with your mentee, and how did it happen?
The moment there is some unhappiness about an issue, we immediately contact each other and sort it.
So that's great. Early intervention. Early intervention is always a good strategy. Don't let things fester. Get to it straight to the point, and implement some form of intervention strategy to do with it, and make it as honest as you can.
Now, there's a reply from the person who was about the scholarship holders with clear short-term goals, and they say they are interstate, so using a colleague in their state for more regular feedback on performance, using me perhaps just to touch base and also to understand how the officiating system works.
Okay, all right. So remember in the earlier slides last week, we sort of said, not last week, last time, in the sense that there can be different types of mentor relationships. And given that in this particular model, the mentor is in one state, the scholarship official is in another, the scholarship official is then using someone that was in their locality or closer to them. As long as I would suggest that the mentor find out what that person is actually assisting them with and how, and as long as that's on the same page as the mentor who's based in the other state, that's fantastic. All right, anything else, Peter?
We've got a couple of other comments, but they're pretty similar to what we've already looked at, I think.
Okay, all right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the roles and responsibilities for mentors. So again, this is a reflection for you guys, and as I mentioned before, the generic you guys. Are you providing information? Are you providing guidance? Are you providing constructive comments? So at times there has to be some tough love. All right. So if you have had to implement some tough love, could you quickly just email through or send a quick line about what that tough love was about and how you approached it, just in a dot point form? Do you listen to the scholarship officials' plans and decisions? How good are your listening skills? Okay? Listening is one of the key ingredients to being a good mentor, as well as the strategic questioning as we talked about. Do you engage in critical thinking and reflection? Okay? And that's about you. Are you constantly trying to find out more information? Have you got time to do self-reflection? I would challenge all of you, after every type of interface with your scholarship official, reflect on it. Try and prove it. Remember, we're all on a continuum of learning. Okay, we're constantly on a continuum of learning. Are you completing tasks by agreed times? Or are sometimes you getting pulled to the side because of the demands of other positions you've got? Okay. Do you maintain the confidentiality? Have you let anything slip just by accident? All right. And you've done a Homer Simpson. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Should engage my brain before I open my mouth. Okay. Do we get any feedback at the moment, mate, of the tough love?
We've got one, yeah. We've got a couple, sorry. My mentee had a setback. He didn't get the appointment he wanted. We talked through similar examples in my past of getting setbacks and how to respond, showing your coaches you're continuing to be positive.
Okay. Yep. Any other comments?
No, that's about it.
Okay. I found out over the years that being a mentor myself is that the mentee or the scholarship official likes to hear about stories that have challenged you. I was in a meeting. I was in a meeting yesterday with a CEO of an organisation, and he turned around because there was some younger, inexperienced people there, and he said, "Always take hard straight on." He said, because when you're put in a hard or difficult situation, that is when the most learning occurs. So never ever try and sidestep the difficult stuff or the hard stuff, he said, because that's when the learning occurs. And he's been put in a situation where he's had to downsize an organisation and has had to have some really tough discussions with people and have to move them on. And he said in any of these hard, difficult situations where you're dealing with other people, you have to be able to give them all the information, right? And you have to have empathy with them, and there has to be some form of empowerment for the next step. So it was quite interesting talking about that yesterday to him about that. So again, especially in the officiating fraternity, it is about taking things head on. It's about the hard talk. Okay. As Steve Clark always says, when there's a state of origin game like last night, a week before when the appointments come out, there's all backslapping going on and fantastic. Congratulations on your appointment. This is great, fantastic. He said, but there is a saying in rugby league that the train, as soon as you get your appointment, the train is leaving the station and eventually the train will be coming straight through. So he said, be prepared for comments on the officiating by about Friday, by about tomorrow. And again, there was comments late last night about, stripping of the ball and things like that. So in those types of situations, there has to be support, but then when the referees of high performance event, like last night, go into their debriefing on Monday, then it has to be honest, to the point, yet supportive. Okay? So it's really important to talk about your experiences, and sometimes the scholarship official forgets that you were in their shoes one time or for a number of years. And again, with the experience that you guys have, it's the mistakes that you've made that have changed the behaviour the quickest, or changed your behaviour the quickest. All right? All right, let's move on. 7 learning styles. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Roles and responsibilities of mentees. I'm working off paperwork as well as this. Okay, with the mentees, they've got to be proactive in inquiry. Sorry, I better slow down. Be proactive in acquiring new skills, knowledge, and including seeking guidance. They accept responsibility for their own decisions and actions. Okay. I hope that a lot of your mentee scholarship officials have moved past making an excuse. Okay, they've got to accept responsibility for their own decisions and their actions, both on and off the competition environment. They've got to be able to engage in critical thinking and strong self-reflection. They've also got to complete the task by agreed times and maintain confidentiality. When you look at it, the roles and responsibilities of the mentor and the mentee are in fact the same. Okay, there's no difference because it's a partnership. All right, Peter, next slide. Thanks, mate. Okay, I want to talk about the 7 learning styles. Now, we quickly touched on the 4 major learning styles at the beginning of the year. What I want to talk about, I want to drill down a little bit more into the 7 learning styles. Now that you have been working with your scholarship official for a number of months now. I hope that you both now have an idea of what each other's preferred learning style is, remembering that you are not boxed in a corner for that preferred learning style. It's just the one that you feel most comfortable with. Okay, so what I want to do is talk about these 7. So visual, or what we're calling spatial learning style. You prefer using pictures, image, and spatial understanding. Okay? So that's the first one. I mean, what we talked about before was VARK, which was visual, auditory, read, write, and kinesthetic. So they're the 4. So we're just extending on those 4, expanding on these 4 to 7. And some of those, the last 3, aren't actually probably applicable to the officiating environment, but it could be still part of their learning styles in environments outside of officiating. The second one is the oral or the auditory. You prefer using sounds and music. Okay? So, you know, you see a lot of athletes preparing for competition with headphones on. Okay? So they're playing music. Why are they playing music? Okay, they may not be learning anything from it, but it actually is motivating them. Okay? The next one is verbal or linguistic. You prefer using words both in speech and writing. All right? The next one is the physical, which is kinesthetic. You prefer using your body, hands, and sense of touch. That's the doing things. Next slide, thanks, Peter. Okay, there's a logical learning style. So you prefer using logic, reasoning, and systems. So it's more of a mathematical type of learning style. It's interesting because what I've found just from observations is a lot of referees, umpires, officials turn into this systematic approach. They like the logic, they like the reasoning, they like the systems, and that's what rule books are like a bit. So if this occurs, this is what happens. If this occurs, this is what happens. So this is a new one. So this is logical. So does your official prefer the logical step-by-step systematic approach to you giving feedback or supporting them? Okay, does your official prefer to learn in groups or with other people? Do they want more than just you? Are you enough? We've already heard that one official, a scholarship official, has another mentor in the state that they reside in, and the other mentor is across the country in another state. Okay? Or is your official, scholarship official, solitary? So do they prefer to work alone and use self-study and really sort of a quiet, they prefer to be by themselves? And I'd actually never thought of these extra 3. So that's why I thought I'd throw that in to see whether these 3 actually are reflected in any of your scholarship officials. So if we go to the next slide, thanks, Pete.
I think, Darryl, we lost your sound just for a few seconds there. Or I did anyway.
Oh, did you?
But only a few seconds.
Okay. All right. So what do you think is the predominant learning style of your official? Is it A, visual? Is it B, oral? Is it C, verbal? Is it D, physical? Is it E, the logical? F, the social? Or G, the solitary? Okay. I think there's a poll next, Pete. Okay, so in light of that, okay, do you both have the same predominant learning style? So we just talked about those 7 styles, and we talked about the official having those 7 styles, scholarship official. Now, reflecting upon your own, over the last few months, do you both have the same learning style or similar learning style in similar environments? So is that a yes or no? Okay, so we've got 63% of people saying yes, they've got a similar learning style, or same predominant learning style, and we have 38% of people that have got probably different styles. So if we go to the next question, and hopefully the transition will be okay, Pete. No, it's gone again.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Okay, so while Peter's rebooting it again, I'm going to ask this strategy, or I'm going to ask this of the 38%. What strategies have you used to assist in the learning process, given that your learning styles are different? Now, the other percentage of people have said, yes, we've got a similar one. That's not always going to be the case in the future. Okay, so what I want people to do, again, probably about 40 seconds, is what strategies have you used, and you definitely plan those strategies to assist in the learning process, given that you may be a read-write and they may be a kinesthetic. So if you could just type that through into the chat box, and we can have a quick feedback on that. All right, so we've got some comments, Pete?
Yeah. Honestly, haven't thought about it to this point.
Good. Honesty, well done. My challenge back to you is to think about it, to see whether you can actually improve on the relationship. That's great. Thank you for that honest feedback. Okay. Again, they could be just sitting there going, oh, well, yeah, sure, Daryl, that's great, but things are going all right. So what I'm saying is, go to that varklearning.com, vark-learning.com, and go through and see what your preferred learning style is and see what your scholarship official's learning style is. Because somewhere in the future, if you continue on mentoring, you will end up with somebody that will be completely opposite to your learning style. Okay, next person.
Attempt to accommodate mentee by changing style.
Okay. Did you find that hard to do? If you could just yes or no, or was it okay? Okay, next person.
I have had to think and change the way that I communicate with my mentee, different to what I would with others. He is a very reserved and quiet person, whereas I am different. So I have to use this in my communication with him.
Good. And as all the data that we're receiving before this, it's actually working. And it's good that you've reflected on that and gone, well, he's this type of personality, or his learning style is like this, so therefore mine's like this, I've got to meet him halfway. And again, as a mentor, you can only work within the parameters of your personality. I mean, that's the important thing. Your personality, I believe, your personality has certain parameters, and you've got to work within those parameters, and at certain times you have to make adjustments so that the mentee, scholarship official, will be able to, accept ideas, act upon ideas, get to their outcomes. When I talk about parameters of personality, and this is a true story, and I don't know if Peter knows this guy that I'm talking about, but this guy actually delivered a presentation on delivering the raw content, and this was down in Melbourne, and I got feedback from people that were actually there, and this guy, to get a wow factor, actually sort of started taking his clothes off during the presentation. Do you know who I'm talking about, Peter?
Yeah, I do now, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he got down to next to nothing. And again, he wanted impact. And again, the feedback was, wow, that was really funny, or wow, that was really bad taste. Now, why I tell that story is that when I present, there's no way I could do that. And nor would you want me to do it as well. But I could not do that because my personality stops me from doing that. Okay, because I would never ever do that. But this guy, and again, you're probably thinking, oh, he must have been pretty buff. No, he's not, is he, Peter?
No, that was the disturbing part about it.
Yes, that is. So he wanted to have this impact during, this presentation skills section, and he named it, and then he started doing that. And I'm sitting, when I got the feedback, I thought, how could you do that? So remember that you have your own personality, which has boundaries around it. Okay? Any other feedback?
My mentee is high energy 100% of the time. We've discussed systems to put in place to have an off button, such as writing things down. Writing enables thought and focus.
Good strategy. So what happens is, what you're saying is this guy or girl is full of beans, high energy, and you don't have that type of personality. So what you've done is you've actually turned around and said, okay, well, let's put a strategy in for some quiet time, basically, so that I can recollect my thoughts, or I can collect my thoughts, and this person can go to another area of writing things down, which may be more applicable to the learning style of the mentor, which is great. And if it's working, keep it going. Any other comments, Peter?
No, that's it for now.
Okay, moving on. Thanks, mate. Okay, so driving the mentor relationship, you would have seen the green, the amber, and the red, and I'm not sure if you remember it from the beginning of the year. So step 1 is mentee focused, and step 2 is mentee driven. So we want the mentees and scholarship officials in the green. Now, there are times where they will go to amber, okay? And that's where you as a mentor have to read this, and sometimes it has to be mentor nudged and mentor pushed. My preference is that everything from 1 to 3 is great. Once we step 4, I think is the step over point. So if you have to continually start pushing the mentee, you then move into step 5, where the whole relationship is being driven by you. Okay? And then we get into step 6, where if it's consistently, the majority of the time being driven by you, an intervention needs to occur. So that's why I think step 1, 2, and 3 is where we want high percentage, or all our scholarship officials and mentor relationships occurring in that space. Step 4, flags are starting to be pulled up the flagpole. Step 5, step 6, we need intervention. So basically, as I've mentioned from the feedback, is that we haven't had any step 5s or 6s at this stage. Okay? So what I say is we want to keep in the green and maybe one of the amber. Okay? Okay, next page. Thanks, Pete. And I don't think we'll go to a poll, mate. We might just sidestep the poll. And what I will do is I'll ask you just to chat box back to Peter whether your relationship is in the green, the amber, or the red, rather than doing a poll. So either just put a G, A, or R, and Peter can just quickly tell me what those responses are. So if you could type that now. And they're all going, wow, Darryl, you've got us doing some work tonight. It's good. It's good.
They're mostly green, Darryl.
Great to hear. Okay, so if the majority are green, that's a great place to be. And don't panic if it's going a little bit into it being nudged, because what happens is with the scholarship official, there's the demands of their sport, demands of family, and demands of work. And sometimes the demands of work and family will overshadow, on a few occasions, the demands of the scholarship. So the nudging is okay. Don't panic if it goes to the nudge. Okay? And if it has to be driven by you, couple of instances, I'd say any more than 2, then the red flags start occurring. Anything under 2, it's just life occurring. Okay, next page. Thanks, Pete. Okay, now what will happen now is I'm setting a home learning experience for you. That's the modern version of homework. Okay, now I will send this link out to you. What I want you guys to do is go back and have a look at the scenarios that we examined on the Gold Coast. And I want you to take some notes on how would you deal with those scenarios now that you've got 6 months, a year and a half, 10 more years of mentoring skills. Okay, this is a especially interesting exercise with mentors that have come into the program new this year. So I will send this link around to you. There are 4 scenarios. They go for 5 minutes each, 4 to 5 minutes each. We did deal with them on the Gold Coast. What I'd like you to do is have another look at them and see what strategies you will put in place to overcome the challenges of the scenario. Now, the scenarios are coaching based, but it's not about the content. It's about the interaction between the mentee and the mentor. Okay, so don't take this down at the moment. I'll send an email out probably tomorrow night with the link on it. Okay. Now, what are we at, Peter? 8:54.
That's very good.
Okay. Are there any questions? That's it for me tonight. Are there any questions that anyone would like to ask before we finish tonight? Just throw them through to Pete now.
Yeah, I'll just, while people are doing that, I'll just mention, just so it's clear, that is a open URL. You don't have to log into it at all. There's no passwords there at all. Just go straight to that URL and you'll be fine.
Any comments, Peter, other than shut up, Daryl, let me get out of here?
No, a couple of good thanks, which is nice. Thank you very much. No other comments, Daryl.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We've got one more to go and we'll be finished, remembering that we'll be meeting up in mid-June in Melbourne for the day, and we'll be having some conversations and a couple of presentations. I'll be sending the program into Ben and Ash probably next week. They're back at work. Ash has been on leave and Ben's had a knee operation, so that'll go into them next week for them to okay it, and then we'll circulate it out to everybody once that's been okayed. A replay of this will be ready probably in, how long, Peter, you reckon? 4 days?
Hopefully before next Monday, because I'm in Darwin. If it's not done before then it'll be end of next week. So I'll do my best.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Peter. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience when we had some more hiccups. We've got to work out the transition between the polls back to the slides. But we'll work on phase 2 technical problem between now and next time. Hope you have a good evening, and thank you very much for this evening. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Daryl. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.